sponsored in part by Pediatric Associates of Dallas. Pediatric Associates of Dallas has been providing excellence in pediatric medicine since 1971. PAD has locations in Dallas and Plano and is now open 7 days a week because taking care of kids is what we do.
The following content is not intended as a substitute for professional legal advice, medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your attorney, advocate, physician, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding any medical or educational concerns.
Hello and welcome to Empower Dyslexia. I'm Rachel Chambers.
And I'm Stephen Yearout.
And we're here to help you be a better partner in education. On this show, we talk about dyslexia, obviously, and related disorders. We talk about research, like the latest research, what we can get our hands on, and interventions, special education policy at the state and federal levels. And then we talk to experts, obviously, because we are not the experts, but we are gaining a lot of knowledge by doing this show. So welcome and thank you for joining us. Make sure you like us on Facebook and YouTube.
The thing I love about our show is not only do we speak to experts, but we get to hear and talk to the people that are dealing with this every day.
Yeah.
Right? We get to talk to the parents that are struggling and that are out there trying to find out what information they need to make sure that their child gets the appropriate services, right?
Mm-hmm. And it can be a struggle. I did want to mention, because it's new to me, but as of a couple of weeks ago, but if you tune in on our YouTube show, we have everything in subtitles. So if for hearing impaired.
We also have it in Spanish.
And it's in Spanish
on YouTube. Subtitles. So
pass that along if you have anybody that speaks Spanish or is hearing impaired, because they can, tune in via YouTube. So, okay. What else do you want to talk about?
Well, since we talked about YouTube, let's talk about how you can catch our past shows.
Yes.
So obviously, if you're watching this live, it's Facebook or YouTube Live. I can't think today, sorry. But if you enjoy audio podcasts, it's Apple, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Alexa, Spotify, any of those great apps that we tend to rely on for all of our podcast needs.
There you have it.
Download it, listen, learn it up.
Yeah.
Get learned.
Get learned.
So, as we were talking about, we talked to people that have experiences and are, boots on the street, right, that are dealing with this firsthand. And that's what today's show's about. Today's show is about a story of love and dedication from parents who would do anything to make sure that their child gets the proper support in education to make sure that they're successful. Mm-hmm. It's a story that we get to see the history over decades of special education and reading remediation.
Pretty near 50
almost
years.
50 years.
Yeah.
5 decades of experience and being able to see firsthand how this thing unfolds.
Yes.
Vast personal experience, obviously a firsthand knowledge of how programs work, what's successful, what's not. And
then the growth, what they've seen as far as intervention improvement. So
it's a very touching and amazing story and journey, right? Mm-hmm. So it's my pleasure and Rachel's pleasure to introduce to y'all Miss Julie Conway Sword. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine. I'm just looking forward to sharing with you today and possibly making it easier for some parents who are out there struggling to hear the story. So I can begin.
So would you start with giving our audience a brief introduction, kind of a bio, your experience, your education, that type of thing?
Sure. Okay, I was a music teacher. That was my passion, and I was enjoying that. And beside that, I was enjoying our family. My husband Walter and I had 5 children. And one day, when the fourth child came home from second grade public school, he said to me, "Mother, I don't want to read another book." And he was very discouraged. He said, "The teacher keeps saying to me, 'Read faster, John, read faster.'" And he said, "I don't even want to go to school anymore." And I was devastated because I couldn't imagine, had I failed to do something in preparation for him. I'd read him books, I'd taken him to the library, we'd gone to all kinds of events that would enhance his interest in reading and school. But here he was. And so a sister-in-law of mine, Pat Lindamood, invited us to come to California. She and her husband, Charles, were just developing a program that would help teach reading to children. So we caravanned to California. Pat evaluated John, and she said, "Julie, he needs my program." So she taught me the basic lip and
Oh, we got
stand by. We
hold
have
on just a second.
Looks like we got a little glitch.
We are working on reconnecting.
Okay.
So
We
give us
lost the
just a
connection.
second. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll tell you a little bit about Mrs. Julie Conway. I'm sorry, Julie Conway Sword.
Well, let's give it a second and see if she makes it back. How's
Oh, okay. We'll talk about us.
yeah. My favorite topic. Let's talk about me.
Oh, okay.
just
How's
kidding.
that? How's it going, Steven?
No. So how's the testing going for your son?
So, as of right now, we have done 3 evals through Dallas ISD. He completed the Woodcock Johnson back in July, and okay, we're back on. But he also completed speech and OT. So I'm still waiting to hear, what those results are. But I think we're back with Mrs. Conway Sword. Hey, there we go. Okay.
There you go.
We're back. Okay, so you were saying that you went out to California and Patricia, your mother-in-law, or
Sister.
my goodness, sister-in-law, my bad, sister-in-law evaluated him and said that, yeah, he needs the intervention. And she taught you?
She taught me basic label picture sounds that I could help John become aware of how his mouth worked to produce those sounds. And he readily picked up on it and went on into 3rd grade with no problems.
Fantastic.
However, I still had a 4-year-old at home. And I thought to myself, I'm not waiting till some teacher tells me in 2 years from now that my child has a problem. I'm going to do it before he goes to school.
So let me can I ask you a quick question? Before your sister-in-law had tested your son, did you know anything about dyslexia?
Not especially. My husband was in mental health, so he had told me some things, but it wasn't a subject that I had studied.
So, I mean, it wasn't like you knew that you needed to go, and this was something that your sister-in-law was going to be able to help you with. This was just kind of a, hey, this is the issues we're going through, and she said, let me see what I can do.
Yes.
And what was her background?
Okay, Pat was a speech pathologist, and her husband Charles was a linguistics teacher. They were trained in the best schools in the country. When they tried to put into practice the methods that they had been taught for introducing reading to children or adults, there was always a nucleus of children or adults with which none of the programs worked.
Mm.
So this was disturbing to Pat. And she made it a matter of prayer and asked the Lord, what is it that I do naturally that I could help these children develop? And so in the middle of the night, she was awakened and started to write the program. And in 2 weeks' time, she and Charles had finished the Lindamood method and found that it was, felt that it was really valid and a gift, and was willing to then, start to use it. She actually developed it in 69. We visited her in 70. So that's how new.
So it has been 50 years. I mean, exactly 50 years. A long time.
So your third grader going into fourth grade had gone through
Second grader going into third.
Yeah.
second grader going into third. Sorry, you had worked with him with these techniques, which, from what you have said, really helped him blossom into the reader that he needed to be. And you weren't waiting around for your next child to fail, correct?
Because at this point, I knew that this program worked remedially and preventively. I mean, I was experimenting with it preventively. And true, it did. And time showed that Tim went through school with no problems. But what was happening was that both boys were developing the feeling of the sounds. That's the critical part that works with the visual and the thinking and helps them to use all of their thinking power. If that part is missing, then it doesn't help the child to be stimulated visually. And because he's not going to pick up on it. Now, some children have this discerning ability naturally, and some children need to have it developed. The good news is it can be developed, but if they don't have that opportunity, well, then they can struggle, as John was struggling.
Mm-hmm.
So you put your son Tim through this program.
Yes.
And at this point, are you seeing a light that, hey, this is something that really works? I mean, what's your next steps after seeing something? I mean, Rachel and I always talk about you can't unsee something that is
Once you know something, it's
Right.
like, well,
that changes people's lives.
yeah.
Yes.
What was your next?
It was like a light bulb went off for me. I thought, oh my gosh, with what I know about the experiences of my two sons, I could be helping other children or adults develop this awareness. And so I went back to school and got my master's in education with a major in reading. So then I felt like I was better equipped to address this issue in a classroom where children might have that problem. Actually, I did. I taught in a learning disabilities classroom, a special ed classroom, for 7 years using the program.
So let me get
But
this.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to say, let me get this right. You're a music teacher who was so taken back by what you've learned and you've seen that you went back to school to get your master's and
Specializing in
specializing
reading.
in reading, and you went into special education also, and gave up on, not necessarily gave up, but you moved away from
Music.
to teach
Right.
these kids to be able to read.
Yes, because I could visualize the benefit. You know, think how many children could benefit if just one person, myself, was educated in reading concepts. I mean, I had to get the whole background in reading so that I could, you know, it was the key to open the door that I could teach the Lindamood concepts.
Well, I think it's great that you went back and taught all these kids because now I remember when we were on the phone, you had said that, was it 1987 that you guys opened your own reading center?
No, it was in '87 that we both went to California to work in Pat's center. She invited us to come, and it was very timely because before we could get moved and be out there, Charles passed away, and he was the financial officer. Well, Walter had experience with the legislature in that he was in mental health, budgeting and planning financially. So he stepped into Charles's role,
Okay.
and they needed him.
Yeah. Okay, so Charles was Patricia's husband.
Yes,
And then Walter, just to be so our audience is clear, is your husband. And
Right.
so he took over for Charles, and you guys moved out there in 1987.
Yes.
And then you moved back to Pennsylvania and opened your reading center.
The realization that this program needed to be spread.
Hmm.
It didn't need to just be in one location. And so we made it a matter of prayer and felt led to go to Pennsylvania. There were families that came all the way from Pennsylvania to have their children have the treatment, have the method. And they were saying to us, nobody in Pennsylvania is doing this program. So then we moved all the way to Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania is a great state. It's very pretty. So is California, for that matter.
I mean, this goes back to, talking about the parents' dedication to their kids to do whatever it takes, whether it's take your child from Pennsylvania to California, or to move yourself to go get trained in a particular program to make sure that you can train and help other kids. I mean, this to me is, this is Empower Dyslexia at its core,
Yeah.
right? This is what Empower Dyslexia is about helping parents do these type of things to make that extra help or that extra support and do whatever it means necessary to get your child the support, whether that means change careers, whether that means whatever it is. We as parents do it, and that's what we consistently see through our communication with all of our viewers.
Yeah. Yes. Everybody's on that journey, trying to help their children or grandchildren, for that matter. So, okay. So tell us, since you've been doing this for so long, so tell us, what is the key to your sister-in-law, Patricia Lindamood, their program?
Well, the key is the auditory part. This is what is not usually being addressed in reading programs. And so to develop the feeling for a child to look in the mirror and notice, is it my teeth? Is it my tongue? Is it my lips? What's working to produce these sounds? And so then when they can become aware of that, and they can start to judge how many sounds, what kind, and what order are in a word, they become independent in their own skills. It's not a top-down approach where the teacher's just pouring it in. It's actually a Socratic method where they are questioned all along. And this just engages people of any age, engages them in the process because they realize something is changing and happening, and I'm going to be in charge of my thinking.
And that's that's powerful when
It's
you.
empowering.
Yes. Yeah. Well, cool.
Yeah, I won't say that.
Okay.
So, can you talk to us a little bit about your days in Pennsylvania when you opened up your reading intervention clinic?
Well, it was a gamble because we had never done anything like that before. And so we located a room in a large building where a lot of things were going on in different rooms. And we advertised. Fortunately, there was one parent who trusted me. And so I got to work with her child. Her child made good progress. And then it just seemed like it started to spread because, that parent talks to some other parents, and the child is known, and his friends and his parents of his friends. So in a short time, actually, we were there 6 years. In 6 years, we had trained 7 clinicians. We had a $300,000 business, and teachers were sending us, or actually principals were sending us children from their schools to have the added program so that their children too could become independent in their thinking and reading skills. So it was a risk, but it was a risk worth taking. And it wasn't until my husband developed colon cancer that we had to return to Missouri. So we were there for 6 years. We found a couple that were willing and interested, 2 psychologists, to buy the program and to continue it. So as far as I know, it's still going.
Oh, well, good.
That's amazing. You also talked about your son Tim, who has now literally grown up in dyslexia intervention.
Did we lose it again?
Nope.
Oh, okay. I thought I heard something. Good.
Literally grown up in dyslexia intervention, and then has now taken the torch and ran with it, not only through studies, research, becoming a brain scientist and researcher, and the amazing things that we know that Dr. Conway has done. You went to work at some point after all this. You went to work with him at his clinic in Florida. Can you talk to us a little bit about that experience?
Oh, with Tim.
Correct.
Okay, well, I after my husband passed away, I continued to tutor in my home, and for about 10 years. And then Tim said, Mother, I'm going to buy a reading center, and so why don't you move to Florida and come work for me? Because I was, really had reading consultant experience. So in 2 weeks' time, I went home, and in 2 weeks' time, I sold my house, and Tim found a house here in Florida. So yes, I made the move to Florida.
Wow.
Which was timely because I didn't really need ice and snow anymore. Anyway, so I worked for Tim for 3.5 years. And then I said, okay, Tim, I'm done. And he said, I agree, Mom. Good time.
So,
So the program, as Tim was running it, was basically the same, but he had expanded it, organized it better. It was more creative, and they were doing research along with our program. And the thing that was good was that they were measuring the results. They were getting a verification by percentages of how much progress the student was making. Mm-hmm. So they could compare, his past to his present. And this was encouraging because that could be divulged to the student, and they could feel good about the fact that they were doing better. But most of the students could feel it themselves. Mm-hmm. They might come in with their heads down, discouraged, sad, not even standing up straight. And after 6 weeks or maybe 3 months, it depends upon the severity of their problem, they would, you didn't know this child. Their head was back, they were laughing, they were initiating conversation, they were reading books like crazy. So that was the change that you could see. But Tim enhanced what was the basic program.
Could you kind of speak to that? Like what enhancements were made? And it was probably based on the research that was being conducted at Florida, I'm guessing. Is it Florida State or Florida University? It's the Gators. I think it's Florida State. I get them
Florida
confused.
State Seminoles.
Shoot. Okay. Florida University then. I want to give credit where the research was done. So thanks.
Okay, well, I think I explained it as much as I could in terms of that the progress was verified, mm-hmm. percentage-wise. They had more materials. Tim had more materials for them to work from, to experiment with their reading skills. They were given constant feedback. I think it was pretty much the same, but it was enhanced.
So he took the base of the program and built on it through research and understanding the methodologies of how the brain works and how it actually learns, and enhanced everything. So although, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is what I understand from talking to Dr. Conway, where the base was very similar. That's about where it stops, because he's made massive amounts of changes to support the research that he's done, mm-hmm. in order to make the methodology that he uses more effective.
Well, actually, he expanded it to be a medical clinic.
Correct.
Not only did they have the reading program, they had occupational therapy, speech, a number of other things, neuropsychology.
So he looked at a whole child approach, not just a reading disability or reading remediation. It was an entire child from a medical standpoint, ground
because
up.
all these things are related.
Correct.
When the child is developing one skill, all the other areas are related, and especially if they were diagnosed to need the occupational therapy or some of the other interventions, the diagnosis would show these things need to be addressed.
And that's something that we preach a lot. When we start talking about going out and initially getting your full individual evaluation, mm-hmm. because you don't want to just look at one piece of the pie, meaning, yes, your child has dyslexia. Okay, my child has dyslexia. Is there any other issues that are underlying or that go along what we call comorbidity Is there anything else that goes along with this that they're going to be struggling with? I don't want to just remediate half my child. I want to make sure that we're doing everything that they need in order to remove those rocks, so that they get the education that they need.
Well, and a lot of times the intervention is not going to be as effective if you don't know all the pieces
True.
to the pie, like you said. So so you want to look at the whole child. So I get that. That's what we do in nursing.
So let's get to a little touchy-feely question. Now that we're 5 decades out, and you've been able to look back on all this from your standpoint, and you've seen the amazing things that your son has done and your sister-in-law's done and everything in the middle.
And you've done.
And you've done. I mean, everything along the way. How do you feel, or what's your thoughts on how Dr. Conway is and what he's doing now, and how he's helping children?
Well, it's almost ironic that when I started with him when he was 4 is now the focus of his life. And he is so dedicated to helping children and adults. It's a passion for him. And you don't have to speak with him very long, and there's nothing else that matters as far as he's concerned. Helping children and adults is primary. There are just a number of things that I feel have been helped because of his interest. He's helped hundreds of children and adults, and he's hoping for more.
Sure.
And that, that's commendable.
So, do you have any advice for our parents out there, viewers who, that's just now starting this journey? Because we know that this takes many different roads when we're going down, trying to make sure that our child gets the help that they need. Do you have any advice for our parents out there that are just now starting this journey?
Well, I would encourage them to search and find an evidence-based, a research-based program. There are a lot of programs out there, and they all claim to be, the best. But it's up to the parent, I think, to really study it out, talk to other parents who've had success and have their children be helped, and not just on hearsay or something they've read or what's popular.
Right.
They really need to find, and I know that as a parent, that's what they want, because they know if something is not right with the child.
Absolutely.
And parents in Pennsylvania would say to the teachers, so he's making good grades, something is not right. And so they are the ones that are the key. The parents are the ones that are the key to searching and talking to the best educators, those people who've had help, and it's stayed. It wasn't just momentary. They weren't just reading and doing well for a few months, but then it all left.
Right.
It's all up to the parents, I think, to search this out.
So,
and I know they'll do that because it's their child.
Right. What would you say to the child? Because we get that question a lot. We get lots of moms saying, what do I say to my child that has been just diagnosed with dyslexia?
Yeah, because they're hit with a big whammy, you know.
So what do we say to our child?
Well, there's hope. There's hope for you, and we're going to find it. Somebody somewhere has a program that will really work, and we're going to find that program, and you're going to be fine. You're going to go ahead with your life. So, don't be discouraged. There was a student in California, a high school student. He'd actually taken a weapon to school because he was going to have it out with his teacher because she hadn't taught him how to read. But then he was recommended to come to the Lindamood Center, which he did. And in a short time, his skills improved. So one day when I was working with him and his mother was present in the room, they started to look back and reiterate all the pain and misery and struggling that they had been through. And I said, I understand, but don't look back. You don't have to think about that way of addressing life anymore. You have hope. You have a new venture. You have a new life ahead of you. So no, don't look back. So, once a child is helped, it's important to not rehearse the trauma that he's been through, but to congratulate him on trying and keep going and not giving up. And the parent is the cheerleader for that. The parents are the cheerleaders.
Absolutely. I hope that people that are watching this get that you as a parent, obviously we have the ability to change our kids' lives, but we have the ability to change it drastically if we don't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
If we make sure that we do anything and everything possible and reach out for help. And because of what you have done, Ms. Conway, and what other parents like you have done, y'all have saved many kids' lives
Yeah. It's life-saving.
out of your own need to help your own child. And that is what Empowered Dyslexia is about. And we are so glad to have you in our family, in our Empowered Dyslexia family. And thank you for all that you've done and never giving up. Not only giving up for your children, but giving up for all the other kids that you've
came
helped. Yes, because
by
that's
your
what
way.
it's about.
Yeah.
It's about going out beyond yourself and your family. Once your family is helped, go out and repay and help others.
Yeah, kind of pay it forward. That's how change is made. You keep, and I know a ton of parents that pay it forward. Once they've figured something out that works, they shout out about it.
Look, I haven't met not one parent that has a child with a learning disability that doesn't pay it forward with all the information that they get.
It's
We
vital.
want to look at something beyond a visual approach. If a visual approach would have worked, this child would not be having problems.
Right.
And that's not for all children, because as I said, some children, they have this discrimination, this judgment intact. But for the child who doesn't, and we know that it can be developed, they are addressing an area that's not being addressed usually in most reading programs. It needs to be more than a visual approach.
Well, thank you for that clarification and story. We really appreciate you having you on the show today. You've seen dyslexia and reading problems throughout the years, and it's hopeful to see how things are progressing and can continue to progress. So we just really enjoyed having you and appreciate all the work that you've done.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Well, like I was telling Rachel when we first talked, I was calling to talk to Dr. Conway about something, and he was with his mother. and she said hi, and we started talking, and she was so funny and telling me stories. I was like, this is the story of Empower Dyslexia. This is the story about helping others through your own journey. And I thought it was very important to be told. And this isn't about telling a story about a program or a methodology. It's a story about the love and dedication for your children and others, other children also, and doing whatever it takes, no matter what it is, to make sure that we take care of each other.
Exactly.
So, thank you very much.
We need more people like you.
Absolutely.
Oh, and there.
Look,
and
there's
he is.
Dr. Conway.
Aw. Good
Pleasure
morning.
to be here, guys.
Dr.
And,
Conway, do you want to add anything real quick?
Well, I think it's important that people understand the long-term perspective. Is that in our family, dyslexia doesn't run; it gallops. Steal that line from Victoria Beckham, because my father was not a great speller. My older sister had some troubles in school. My brother wasn't a great reader, and I got early intervention prevention. And lo and behold, because of that, and because of what Mom did and what the Lindamoods have done, then my kids were helped as well. Both my son and daughter, got the genetics passed on from us. And we've got to keep pushing for the most evidence-based approach to get the most help for the most kids. And Pat Lindamood's goal and our goal always has been get as much of this into the school system as young as possible, as early as possible, because prevention is far, far more effective than waiting to have to do remediation and waiting until the kids have been traumatized for years through unnecessary failure experiences that happen. If what Julie was saying was just, if you're just using a Stefanik's only approach, the research does not support that that's going to be as effective, especially in prevention, instead of using a multisensory neurodevelopmental approach. And that's what we're trying to help make more available, and are happy to help share that information with others through the media with you guys as well.
Awesome.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity.
Well, thank both of you
Thank
for all that you've done and coming on our show. That's we're about out of time.
Yeah.
And it was a very touching.
I know.
Touching story for
luckily,
me.
the camera was not on me at a specific time during this interview today, because I was just like, oh my gosh. And Steven's laughing at me like, there you go
I'm
again.
not laughing at you.
There you go again, Rachel.
Waterworks is coming. No, it is touching, and it just
Personal.
It's personal, right? And
Yeah.
it shows that we care, and we it's not about just us. It's about the love of everybody around us, and what can we do to help, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
And we're going to make sure that we, like we always say, we're going to bring the most relevant, the most up-to-date information to present it to our viewers, to make sure that they can be the partner in education, the best partner in
informed.
education
Yeah.
that they can be for their children, and hopefully help other children along the way.
Definitely.
So,
Definitely.
well, as we always say at the end of each show, if you have a suspicion that your child is just not getting it, may have a learning disability, don't wait. Please go to our website, www.empowerdyslexia.info. You can download the templates on there, the letter templates that you turn into your school to start the testing or evaluation process.
Yeah, the whole process.
There's a couple of different templates on there that you can use.
I used one of them last
And,
April.
your child will be happy that they finally understand what's going on with them and start to get the intervention that they need.
But guys, it doesn't stop there. I mean, once you're evaluated and once there's a diagnosis, you've got to continue figuring out what the right intervention is, if that intervention is working, and be you're a valuable team player for your child's education. It doesn't stop with just getting evaluated. And teachers too.
Right, you got to ask the
You got to
questions.
do the intervention.
What
You gotta
type of intervention are
follow
you
up.
using? Why are you using that?
And then what's the good progress monitoring?
Right. How does that intervention
How's it working? Is it
specifically
working out?
work for my child?
Yeah.
So
It's very important. So anyways, okay, so that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us, guys, and we'll see you next week. I'm not sure who we have on next week.
well, it'll be a great show.
It'll be a great show, though. We have someone, but I just blanked. Okay, y'all have a great day.
See you there.